Time for SNL. Landry Locker on vacation. So you got me, Cody Stutes, all week long. Check out the Locker Room on YouTube, my channel on YouTube, as well as this channel. Subscribe to all three if you haven't. Of course, you get the best Texans coverage on those three channels. We'll continue our 25 questions for the 25 season this week with 5 more new questions about the Houston Texans in 2025. Before we get to that, a lot of good news on the training camp front coming out. So, folks, if you want to go to training camp, you got to keep these dates in mind. The Texans announcing the open practice for training camp dates, 26th, 28th, and 29th of July, to go along with the 30th as well. And the 1st, 2nd, and then the 14th is the big one. That's the joint practice with the Carolina Panthers ahead of that preseason matchup here in Houston. So those are your open practices for the Houston Texans training camp. You have to get tickets for these. They're free tickets to get, but you have to sign up to try to get them. I tweeted out the link that the Texans sent out. The Texans sent out a link about this too. It's register. It goes live tomorrow morning. I think 10 a.m. 10 a.m. is when it goes live tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Central Time for everybody confused about time zones. 10 a.m. Central Time if you want to get those training camp tickets. And those are the open dates that you can go to. So training camp, of course, is going to be covered by myself, Landry Locker from the Locker Room. We're going to cover it better than anybody. Nobody covers training camp better than us. I'd like to say nobody covers training camp better than me because I also write basically 1,000 words after every practice, including all the videos and social media posts and everything else. So I like to think we're the best in the business when it comes to covering training camp, so you won't get any better coverage. The Texans also announced they're going to take a 4-day trip out to West Virginia. And they're going to stay at the Greenbrier. Now, that happened for the very first time way back in 2017 when Bill O'Brien took the Texans out to the Greenbrier. They practiced there and got to watch the early makings of Deshaun Watson starting to take over. And, of course, they ultimately started Tom Savage. That was stupid. And then went to Deshaun Watson because that made more sense, far more sense, way more sense. And so they're back at the Greenbrier. Landry and I will be there. We'll be there. There should be some fun travel stories from that too. We're flying into it's Richmond, Virginia, going to go to West Virginia and going to cover the Texans out there. So training camp dates announced. The Texans going to the Greenbrier for some trips, for some practices. We'll be there. They're going to have a joint practice in Detroit with the Lions. I'll be there for that. And of course, we'll have it covered here in Houston as well. So got all of that squared away. Wanted to get that on the docket before we get to our questions. Hallam's checking in from the United Kingdom. Good to see you. Appreciate everybody who visits with us internationally. Where's Landry? He is on vacation this week. HDAV Traveler, good to see you, my friend. Appreciate you for your support and for stopping by. And then Trill Kick X asks the question or mentions the name that we're chasing this summer. I need to see Will Fuller. The hunt is on for Will Fuller. I promise you, if Will Fuller wants to be found, we'll find him. And at the very least, if he wants to come on and talk with SNL one day, we will have him on. But I'm efforting Will Fuller. Don't you worry. Don't you worry, Trill Kick X. So I started this on Monday with Landry out. It's 25 questions for the 2025 NFL season for the Houston Texans. We've talked about Titus Howard, the center position. We've talked about Kamari Lassiter and how important he is. We've talked about Nico Collins and how good he can be. Actually saw it today. One of the fantasy guys that I love, Ian Harditz over at Fantasy Life, he believes Nico Collins is going to be the number 1 fantasy wide receiver in all of football. That'd be pretty damn good for the Houston Texans if that was the case. So we've answered those questions. 10 in the books, 15 still to go. Let's go to our first question for today. You see it in the thumbnail. It's a conversation about the Houston Texans running back, Joe Mixon. What does Joe Mixon have left, and what does he need to bring to the table for the Houston Texans in 2025? Here's what I would simply say about Joe Mixon and the necessity of him for the Houston Texans. The rushing attack centers around Joe Mixon being Joe Mixon again. If he is not a good running back, if he is not excellent this year, I do not believe the Houston Texans are going to be able to run the football. And last year, with a crappy offensive line, Joe Mixon still got over 1,000 yards, still got 4 yards or so per carry. So while the situation was not ideal, especially when there were large stretches of the game where you knew the Texans were going to run the football and it didn't matter that they knew because Joe was still getting it done. He still had 4.1 yards per carry and played in 14 games. Obviously left one of those early. Over 1,000 yards, and he had 11 touchdowns, which is the second highest number in his career. We're still a very productive football player in his age 28 season. He's going to turn 29 next month for the Texans, and he's going to be the star running back for this team in 2025. And the Texans are going to want to run the football. DeMeco Ryans hammers it home every chance that he gets that they want to run the football. A perfect day for DeMeco Ryans is the defense rips the opposing team's head off. The offense puts up a bunch of points, and then you grind out the opponent running the football for the final 6-8 minutes of the game. Remember what they did to New England? That's the perfect day for DeMeco Ryans. You trounce the opposing team, get a lead, and turn it over to the running backs. Now, Joe Mixon, with this offensive line and this scheme, where, if you remember, towards the back end of the season, they had a couple of nice and impressive rushing attacks. With this new scheme, Joe Mixon, if it's similar to what the Patriots ran back in the day, then you're going to think to yourself, hey, maybe Joe Mixon can be the bell cow, can be the guy. He has been a top carries guy among the top 4, top 5 in carries a ton in his career. Over the past 3 seasons, only Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs have had more carries than Joe Mixon. And Mixon has still been a very productive player, but that time is going to come to an end. That time is not going to always be there for Joe Mixon. He's 29 years old, a bunch of carries under his belt. And Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry, they have a lot of carries. They were good last year as well. So was Joe Mixon. So with those large amount of carries finally catching up, it would be nice if the Texans had a passing attack they could trust and made things easier for him with better offensive line play. Again, the rushing attack had some moments last year. Mixon had some big games, 159 against the Colts, 102 against New England, 102 against the Indianapolis Colts. Again, 115 against Green Bay. A lot of that was in the front part of the season, not as much in the back part. Teams kind of knew what they were getting at. Better defenses. Obviously, Christmas Day was a damn disaster. Mixon didn't even want to talk after that one, but he's got to be good in 2025. I don't believe that Nick Chubb can take over for a long stretch if Joe Mixon's not available and do what the Texans need from the rushing attack. I don't believe in Daria Gumbawale and Woody Marks and Dameon Pierce. So they need a healthy Joe Mixon. This team is predicated on being able to run the football by virtue of Joe Mixon being a healthy football player. And if he's not healthy in 2025, they may be a little one-dimensional. Now, if the passing attack's good enough, they might be able to survive it. But Mixon has to be healthy. And while he has the offseason boot, he has the offseason foot injury that Aaron Wilson talked about, as long as he's good to go for training camp, they use him sparingly throughout the preseason, and he gets into a nice groove as the season starts, I won't be super worried. Now, 2026 and beyond, I'm not counting on Joe Mixon. But I'm counting on Joe Mixon in 2025. The Houston Texans should as well. And if he's not, the running back that he has been throughout the most of his career, which is, by the way, super healthy, Texans might be in just a tiny bit of trouble with their rushing attack. So what does Joe Mixon have left? Hopefully a hell of a lot for 2025. That's why the Texans brought him in. Let's get to some of your comments, your questions, your joys, and your concerns. Of course, 4 more questions headed your way as well. Hoopty says, can we say Kevin Durant in here? Yeah, Kevin Durant. We talked about it a couple times the past few days. Like the trade, didn't like Jalen Green. Didn't think he was a very good basketball player. Do believe Kevin Durant's a good basketball player. Damon says, be great if we could have a 1-2 power punch with Mixon and Chubb, with Marks being that electric pass catching back you want out of space. Man, that would be nice. If you had 70% of Nick Chubb pre-injury, and that player was there to back up Joe Mixon, that would put put my mind at a lot of ease heading into 2025. If you knew that you were going to have a player you could turn to like Nick Chubb, pre-injury Nick Chubb, and be able to hand him the football. And then, Woody Marks catching the ball out of the backfield. That's what he is brought in for. He is a pass-catching running back, so be nice to see him. JB Allen, the Annihilator. think Chubb step up in the run game, won't take a step back. To the Cleveland sports talkers, have nothing but admiration for him and didn't look at Chubb as someone who is washed. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You can like the guy and then not know if he's washed because the results haven't been there. One of the only offensive lines that was worse or as bad as the Texans last year was Cleveland. Cleveland was terrible last year. And Mixon had to try to run behind that offensive line, and it didn't go very well. He was coming back from the injury. And look, another year further away from the injury, perhaps Joe Mixon has a little bit more juice left in there. Or excuse me, perhaps Nick Chubb has a little bit more juice left in there to back up Joe Mixon should he need to be called upon. But if Mixon's healthy, put Joe Mixon out there, run Joe Mixon. I ain't worried about it. I know the fantasy football folks were worried about it towards the back end of the year. He wasn't getting it done quite to that level on the back end, but he started the season red hot. And if he stays healthy, he should be a worthwhile contributor to this offense and a solid running back amongst the NFL running backs. James R. says, shout out to Fred VanVleet for taking a $20 million pay cut. Yeah, they got the contract adjusted for Fred VanVleet, and he went from 40-something to $25 million a year. So they're moving some money. They're moving some money around there. Over there on what street are they on? Crawford? Is that what street? No, that's where the Astros are. What's the street Toyota Center's on? Well, I guess they have the headquarters else. Whatever. Old Katy Road? Is that where they are? You're confusing him. All-time Brown Joe Mixon. Yeah. Chubb, Mixon, Chubb. Okay. I don't want to see Chubb because I want to see Mixon. I don't want to see the Houston Texans Chubb. All right. I want to see Joe Mixon. There we go. Question number 2. Can Cam Robinson solidify left tackle for the Houston Texans? Cam Robinson, if you're unfamiliar with his work, I would encourage you to catch up on what Cam Robinson has brought to the table as an NFL player. Started his career in Jacksonville, was traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Last year, played half a season with the Vikings and has solidly been an average football player in his time in the National Football League. I say average because the Jaguars, it felt like, were constantly trying to replace him and never succeeding at replacing him. And then Minnesota only snagged him because their franchise left tackle got hurt. He has only played left tackle in his career, and he will be competing with Ariante Ursary for the starting left tackle job for the Texans in training camp. But it would be nice if the veteran with a little bit of experience could lock some things down. Now, coming off of last season, Robinson wasn't amazing. He was just okay. It was some of the worst pass blocking numbers in the past few seasons for him. It was some of the better run blocking numbers of the past few seasons for him, but he allowed 8 sacks. He allowed 49 hurries last year. It's not a one-for-one Laramie Tunsil replacement. But again, the Texans are betting on the sum of the parts being greater, some of the whole being greater than the parts. Yeah. Some of the whole being greater than the parts. And that's kind of what Cam Robinson brings to the table. He is an experienced guy. He looks good out there in OTAs and minicamp. He's moving well in a lot of those things. And again, the run blocking was a little bit better last year overall than it has been, while the pass blocking took a little bit of a step back. You're going to need to help him more than you helped Laramie Tunsil. But a new blocking scheme, a new offensive line coach for him, and certainly for some of the other guys that they brought in, not totally new because they just promoted Cole Popovich, and an offense that knows that it's not Laramie Tunsil out there at left tackle. You don't have to worry about it anymore. So they got to get rid of the football, got to make plays, and got to keep defensive lines on their heels. That would go a long way into making sure that Cam Robinson solidifies things. Now, what does Robinson solidifying left tackle look like? Well, it means winning the job and staying healthy and playing left tackle. He would have played 18 games last year if the Jaguars didn't give him a week off before he got traded to the Minnesota Vikings. So he was healthy last year, but he's had some injury bug issues in the past. So he's going to need to stay healthy after he wins the job, if he can indeed win the job. And then that frees up Ursary to be there in case Blake Fisher doesn't get it done at right tackle, and Ursary needs to either beat him out and start over him or fill in for Blake Fisher if he's not getting it done. Inevitably, Inevitably, I believe Robinson will find himself on the bench before the end of the season, even if he starts the year at left tackle, just because the injury history as well as the investment in Ariante Ursary could lead to Ursary getting the crack there at left tackle. But if Robinson is able to come in there and at least give you average left tackle production throughout the duration of most of the season, that's a nice signing, and that's a good enough player for you over there at left tackle. Remember, it's a sum of the whole is better than the parts for the offensive line. That's the approach. And Robinson is a part of those parts that, but put together with the other four guys, hopefully gets it done in blocking it up for CJ Stroud. Cody's never mixed up names in his life. Yeah, that never happens. Eric Reed, Justin Reed, Jordan Reed. JB Allen, the Annihilator. Solidify? No. Be adequate until we find the long-term starter? Yes. And the long-term starter should be on this team. It should be Ariante Ursary. It should be a player that they spent a draft pick on in the middle of the second round. They traded up to get, and they almost traded up all the way to 38 to get. It should be Ariante Ursary. So Ursary should be the long-term starter. Patrick asks a good question. Have the Texans had any success with reclamation projects under this regime? Depends what you consider a reclamation project. Early in Nick Caserio's tenure, not a lot of success, but, you know, Tim Settle played some of the best football of his career. Mario Edwards played some of the best football of his career before he got suspended last year. They've had a couple of players that have been kind of okay, that have kind of taken it to another level for them and played a little bit better. So not a ton of success, and certainly, my God, certainly not a lot of success on the offensive line. So big question mark, that Cam Robinson. But that's what they have. It's Cam Robinson, Ariante Ursary at left tackle. Those are your first two options, your first two players getting the crack there at left tackle. Fisher played left tackle for Notre Dame. He did. He played left tackle, got hurt, and then by the time he came back, Joe Alt was the left tackle. So Fisher ended up playing right tackle. I don't believe Fisher is going to be a left tackle option. We haven't seen it in minicamp or OTAs, so I don't believe he's going to be a left tackle option. I like this comment from JB Allen. If Brady can win with Nate Solder, Stroud should be able to win with Cam. Now, the thing about the Patriots offensive line, when I went back and looked at it under Cole Popovich, when he was on the offensive staff and when Nick Caley was on the offensive staff, they had some 6th-rounders, some 3rd-rounders, some 4th-rounders, some 7th-rounders. They had some guys that were lightly invested in as the tackles, as the guards and centers and right tackle. Marcus Cannon was a 6th-round pick. Shaq Mason was a 4th-round pick. David Andrews was an undrafted free agent. Joe Tooney was a 3rd-round pick. Ted Karras was a 6th-round pick. They usually invested pretty heavily in that left tackle spot, though. They had Nate Solder, who was a highly drafted player. Before him, Sebastian Vollmer was a highly drafted player. Now, one year, the year they won the Super Bowl, actually, Trent Brown was the left tackle. He's a 7th-round pick. So, the one year they won it all, or one of the years they won it all, Trent Brown was their left tackle. So, yeah, the investment in left tackle, and look, Robinson's a former top pick. He's making $13 million a year. And then if they put Ursary in, that's a highly drafted player that you invested in at the tackle spot. So there's definitely some investment there. It's not to the same level as everybody else, but there is some investment. Hallam puts in Blake Cashman as a reclamation project. Yeah, Blake Cashman is probably one of their best jobs. He ended up signing a huge contract with the Minnesota Vikings after a couple seasons with the Texans. So Cashman's a great example of that. I'd even go as far, even though he's already in the building, Jonathan Grenard played his best football under the Texans and then got a huge contract. So, Grenard hadn't shown any of that up to that point. So Eric Murray, Eric Murray turned into an overpay and then got so cheap on the Texans that he became a nice, valuable piece for the Texans. So yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. JB says, do we see Fisher getting a meaningful playing time this season if Trent Brown is ready to go? Yeah, I actually don't believe Trent Brown's going to be ready to go because of the injury he suffered. It's a patellar tendon injury. And I would tell you Fisher is the starting right tackle, even if Brown is healthy. Now, if Brown's healthy and he's on the roster and Fisher struggles, then, get him out of there and put Trent Brown in there, put Ariante Ursery in there. But I don't know that Trent Brown's going to be ready to beat out Blake Fisher this year. That'd be really bad for Fisher. It'd be really bad for Nick Caserio as well, because the guys got drafted shortly. One of the guys got drafted shortly after Fisher, Roger Rosengarten, has been excellent for the Baltimore Ravens. So, was Malik Collins a reclamation project? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'd say probably not. That's question 2. Question number 3. Is there still a reliable player in Dalton Schultz? Is Dalton Schultz still a reliable football player? It's a question that's worth answering because we know Dalton Schultz is going to be on the roster. Unless some team comes knocking down the Texans' door with a trade offer, which I don't think that's going to happen, we know Dalton Schultz is going to be on the team by virtue of what the Texans are paying him, by what he's making as a tight end for this team. So is Dalton Schultz going to be a reliable football player? Is there a reliable football player in there? I very much believe Schultz can be a reliable player for the Houston Texans in 2025. A lot of his failings last year were asking him to do things that he's not equipped to do, which is pass block. And the performance, how it looked, didn't look that good. But Dalton Schultz, from the counting stats perspective, he really wasn't that far off from what he usually brings to the table. Now, look, he played 15 games in 2022 and 2023 and had more receiving yards, more receptions in both of those years than 2024. He played in all 17 games, and the receptions were down. The targets were down, even though he played more football. But the yards, he's only like 100 yards off from his 2023 performance, and only 40 yards off from his 2022 performance. 3 less touchdowns than those 2 previous years. It didn't look good. Like I'm here to acknowledge, like, when you watched Dalton Schultz play, like, I understand it didn't look good. It didn't look like he was giving it all. It didn't look like he had the juice necessary to be a reliable or productive player. But a couple of appearances here in minicamp OTAs, it's looked okay from Dalton Schultz. He's got to be healthy. They got to ask him to do things they can actually do. Don't ask him to pass block. That was atrocious. Nobody wants to watch that. Certainly CJ Stroud doesn't want to watch that again. But could this guy go out there and recapture his form where he's an 55 catch, 600 receiving yards, 5 touchdown type of guy? Yeah, he absolutely can. Like, I understand that it didn't look good last year, but if you told me he's going to get 55 catches, 600 yards, and 5 touchdowns, I'd take it. It's a good productive year. Look, the numbers on the contract are going to add to the expectations. They're going to add to what you want. But if you get good production out of wide receivers 1 through 3, you have a good running game, and then you add on, 550 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns from the tight end, you're going to be a lot more content and comfortable with that. I trust Nick Caley as well to utilize these tight ends in a way that maximizes what they can do. We saw it a couple of years ago. Schultz can go out there and make some plays. He can go out there and make some big catches, have some big moments for you. I believe there's still a reliable football player in Dalton Schultz. Let's see what the comment section has to say. We'll get to Jacob first because he's got a super chat. Who is your too early to predict surprise candidate? Why is it Kaimi Fairbairn? It is not Kaimi Fairbairn, Jacob. My too early to predict surprise candidate. I actually wrote about this on Houston Football this morning. Danico Autry. I don't believe right now Danico Autry is going to make this team. And we may look back and say, hey, could you have moved off of Danico Autry in the offseason and spent his money on a guard? Maybe we'll say that. But I don't believe Danico Autry is going to make this team. I believe Dylan Horton, Derek Barnett, and Darrell Taylor are going to be the backups at defensive end. So I don't believe Danico Autry is going to make the team. That'd be my super early surprise candidate. All right, a couple of comments here about the tight ends. Johnny, good to see you, Johnny. I really want Cade Stover to take the next step. Schultz is mid at best. Sure. And mid when you're paying him $13 million, $12 million, whatever the contract actually is. That's not good enough. What he brought to the table in 2023 when he was making $5 million, it felt like a steal. And then when he was making 13 million, 10 million, 12 million, whatever it was, it sucked. He's not going to make less money, but if he produces closer to 2023, he'll be okay with it. And Stover, I really hope so too. I feel like year 3 is where Stover really takes the big jump and kind of puts it all together, but he should be a much better football player this upcoming season than he was last year. JB Allen, the Annihilator. Reliable player in Schultz? Yes. Should we utilize Jordan, Smith, and Stover more? Also, yes. Schultz was awful last season, had mental errors you don't want in a vet. Yeah. That's up to Nick Caley and Jake McDonald, the tight end coach. Got to coach him out of that. Got to get him dialed in, focused. And here's another thing to think about. With Dalton Schultz. Schultz pretty much always has a great year for his numbers when it's a contract year. You think about his final year in Dallas before he got that, I guess it was the 1-year deal in Dallas. Then you think about the 1-year deal in Houston. This is a pseudo contract year because you can basically get rid of him in the 3rd year for nothing. Pseudo contract year for Dalton Schultz. So you could get a little bit more production out of him. Damon says, I want Cade to develop into tight end 1, but I want 23 Schultz this season while that happens. Yeah, look, it'd be great if Schultz held it down this year, was good, and you saw that Stover was ready to take the next step, and you could move on from Schultz, could get Stover, maybe draft one of these tight ends in this upcoming tight end draft that's supposed to be loaded. And then maybe your tight end room a year from now is Stover, Lachey, and a draft pick, and I'd be great with that. Johnny likes him some Luke Lachey. He's an interesting draft pick. Just needs to stay healthy. Can make some noise. Lachey was a good receiver at Iowa. They stopped throwing in the football. He had a foot injury. It took him a while to get back from that. And he's got some room to grow as a blocker. Really intriguing player. I like Lachey. And I actually projected him to make the roster over Brevin Jordan in my roster projection that I sent out on Houston Football this morning. Well, when you I this never happened to me, but you see it in the movies or you hear about it, like somebody cheats and their significant other brings them back, takes them back. It's one hell of a level, of Dalton Schultz to earn forgiveness. Oh, just 750 receiving yards. No biggie, just 750 receiving yards. Gamer G. Trey of Texas, contract year. Nah, what's that new contract? That Kaimi is the all-time scoring leader, isn't he? Jacob saying, trying to get me. Hey, look, if they brought in a kicker to give Kaimi a couple days off in training camp because they don't want to tire him out, let the rumors go. Evan Frey, no way, that'd be crazy. I'm assuming you mean about Danico Autry. Thrilled Ben spoke. Autry's a dog, 100% he makes it. Yeah, but if he's not healthy, he'll get Noah Brown. That's my thing. If you're a veteran, you get hurt in training camp, they showed last year they're not afraid to cut a guy, get rid of him, and just eat the money. That's what they did on Noah Brown when he got hurt again. And so if you get hurt again in training camp and you're Danico Autry, why should you make the team? Good to see you, Rolo. Appreciate you jumping in. Damon says, shout out to Cody and all the Damons in today's chat. Yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat today. Shout out to all of you who consume SNL. You consume the locker room. You consume the my channel, which actually this is a hostile, unhostile takeover here. We'll get to the rest of the questions. I think I'm going to rename my channel. I think I'm just going to call Houston Football by Cody Stutes. Because when it's been one of those things when Landry's been telling people, he's like, oh, I got the locker room. And then, you got Cody's channel and then you got SNL. Like Houston Football, the Houston Football channel or Houston Football by Cody Stutes. I think that's kind of what I'm going to brand the YouTube channel that way. So I don't know what you think about that. Let me know in the comment section, the chat, if you will. Houston football and food reviews by Cody Stutes. There are some food reviews. Friday, food review Friday. We'll have one for you. Got the McDonald's s'mores McFlurry is my plan. So the McDonald's s'mores McFlurry is the plan for Friday. Tay Rose, we'll be streaming live at training camp. Not live during training camp. That's where the updates will be on, a few of those on Twitter. But then when you get on with SNL, you get on with Landry, you get on with me, we'll give you the full rundown of what happened at camp. But nothing live at camp. Well, there's Cliff, like a broken record. Too much food talk. Well, you missed yesterday when there was no food talk and there was movie talk. So you missed movie talk. So, any advice for an up-and-coming first-time father? My son will be here in week 2. I got nothing for you. I'm not a kid. I mean, I'm not a kid, obviously. I don't have any kids. So I got nothing for you. I can't help you, Rolo. Perhaps the chat can help out Rolo, but I cannot help you, Rolo. That's a question for Landry when he gets back, but I can't help you. So congratulations for all the work that you did. I think a lot of your work happens now. You take care of Mama and the little one. So congratulations to you. Trey Texas wants me to review the Whataburger pudding shake. Man, I've had it before. It's just okay. It's just okay. All right, question number 4. Will a healthy group of linebackers be elite? Could this linebacking group be an elite linebacking group in 2025? Look, I like Azeez Al-Shaair probably more than most people. And I know watching him chase down Travis Kelce and not do worth a damn in chasing down Travis Kelce, that sucked last year. But Al-Shaair is a really good player. And another year in DeMeco Ryans' system, another year with these teammates, and just some health would go a long way into Al-Shaair being that type of linebacker that he showed that he could be for the Tennessee Titans that one year that he was out there in Tennessee. He could be a lot closer to that, a guy that is a menace around the line of scrimmage, makes it really difficult. Henry To'o figured some things out last year. He was a much better player. The tackling was better. His athleticism was better. His play recognition was better. That was something that was touted for To'o was between the ears. It was better. So you had those two guys primarily, and then you didn't really have Christian Harris. Christian Harris is really the wild card to this because Harris brings to the table something that neither one of those guys does very well. One, Harris is a better athlete than both of those guys. So he is faster. He can use that speed, the acceleration, the quickness. He's a better athlete than Al-Shaair, and he's a better athlete than Henry To'o. His coverage skills are noteworthy as well. And I just feel like putting that athleticism with To'o, with the healthy Azeez Al-Shaair, it gives you a nice base. Then you start thinking about the backups. Should guys miss time or not be available? Nick Niemann is a proven special teams commodity, and he's been in some coverage situations in minicamp and OTAs, and that's a guy that's got a lot of success in the NFL. Probably not as much success as another backup they've got in EJ Speed. EJ Speed is another solid player that they've got on the depth chart, going to help you out on special teams and then going to be a good depth piece for you as well. And when you start thinking about EJ Speed, Nick Niemann, Christian Harris, Azeez Al-Shaair, Henry To'o, a lot of veterans there, a lot of guys who've played a lot of football, and then some younger guys with some specialized skills. And amongst those 5 linebackers that I talked about, you've got a little something for everybody. You've got the athletes, you got the downhill guys, you got the coverage guys, you got special teams aces that help you out in a pinch, a little bit of everything. Can it be elite? And when you think about elite, I think you have to have that top end guy. You have to have one of those guys be like a top end, no question guy. And I just don't know if Azeez Al-Shaair can get there for the Houston Texans. Can he be one of the better defenders on the team? Certainly. Is he ever going to be an elite linebacker? I don't know. Will a healthy group of linebackers be elite? Probably not. They probably won't be elite. Could they be better than what you need? Absolutely. They could be better than what you need out of that linebacker spot. So a healthy group of linebackers, probably not going to be elite, but they could be more than enough for this Texans defense and for the Houston Texans in 2025 if they are healthy. One more question, get to a couple more comments as well. I didn't even think about the silence that the people hear on the podcast after the fact, but Patrick's recommending Houston football food reviews and film discourse by Cody Stutes. Naaman says Houston football is a good rebrand. You right for them already, so might as well keep pushing that brand. Yeah, put it all in there. And I got the Houston football logo stuff on there, so I just need to change the name. Let's see. Here's Jacory with some advice for Rolo. Cherish your sleep now. Congratulations. Ooh, this is a good one. Siraj, Shake Shack has a Dubai chocolate shake. It does look good. I've come to learn to love pistachio over the past couple of years. There's been some good comments and some good questions or some good advice in there for Rolo. So I appreciate everybody in the chat helping him out. Tay says no, very good at best when it comes to the linebackers being elite. Gamer G says hell yeah. Damon says yes. Aziz, Henry T, Harris, and Speed could be elite. So he's got a little bit more belief in them than I do. He couldn't chase down that Sasquatch that ate Travis Kelce and wore the uniform. Yeah, Kelce doesn't look like an elite guy anymore. Physically. JB says, great question. Mina Kimes and Dominique Foxworth have no faith in the linebackers. I don't believe the linebackers are going to be bad. I'm not sure they're going to be excellent. And that may be enough. You may have enough on the defensive line and the secondary. They don't have to be excellent. I want to hear the impact of a Petrie tackle. So threw that in there. It's a nice little random one. Yeah, Devin White did not get brought back, so he's not a part of the linebacking situation. Jacory asks if the Texans are going to get a new set of jerseys when they can first get their new jerseys. No, but they're going to get a Rivals jersey next year. So they're going to get a new spin on what they currently have. And I very much believe that a white helmet is in the works down the road. So I would keep that in the back of your mind as you think about the Texans in the near future. What button did I hit that had Patrick pop up? But yeah, so they have like a new jersey next year for the rival stuff. All right, so the Dubai chocolate shake. Got to make sure I write these things down. One more question here. Trey recommends the Portillo's chocolate cake shake. Now, I didn't review that for the channel, but I've had it. It's decadence. I mean, it's awesome. Maybe next time I go, I'll review that. I don't make it to Portillo's very often, but next time I go, I'll make sure I review that. Johnny, Sonic's coming out with a Big Dill Smash Burger, pickle seasoned tots, and pickle slushy. I'm a huge pickle fan, but I don't know. This could be interesting. I mean, I'm out on, I don't like pickles, so I'm out on pickles. So I can't do that one, Johnny. That one's not for me. That's for somebody else. Maybe I'll get a guest that day, bring them in and let them review it. But I'm out on pickles. I don't like pickles. I like pickled things, but I don't like pickles. Question number 5. Our 25 questions. This is the 15th question this week about the 2025 season. Question number 5. Will Derek Stingley be the best cornerback in football? Will Derek Stingley be the best cornerback in football? There's a chance, isn't there? Like, there's a chance that Derek Stingley is the best cornerback in football this year. And guys may not throw at him. Guys may not give him the opportunity to get a lot of stats. But if the coverage grade gets a little bit better from a advanced stat standpoint, he gets a few more interceptions. He had 5 last year, which was 3rd amongst cornerbacks. I think it's not crazy to think that Derek Stingley, who in a lot of people's opinions was the 2nd best quarterback in football last year, it's not crazy to think that he could be the best. Pat Surtain's really good. Pat Surtain's the defensive player of the year, the reigning defensive player of the year. He was excellent in run defense. He was excellent in coverage. He had 4 interceptions. Derek Stingley can do everything that Pat Surtain did. Like he can. Will he? It means to be seen. If he followed a few more number 1 wide receivers, maybe that would add a little bit to the mojo, the story, the mythology of Derek Stingley. But can he be the best cornerback in football? Yes, he can. Will he? I mean, look, Pat Surtain's going to be tough to knock off. There's going to be guys coming for Stingley's spot as the 2nd best corner. A lot of people would tell you Trent Duffy's pretty close to Stingley. Some people would foolishly tell you Sauce Gardner's close to him. But will Derek Stingley be the best cornerback in football? It's not likely, but it's possible. It's certainly possible, especially if he gets a handful more interceptions. He already had 5 interceptions last year. If he ended up with, say, 7 interceptions and guys just stopped challenging him as much, and he had a little bit more success in coverage than he already had, not only are you talking about best cornerback in football, you're talking about maybe a defensive player of the year contender. Don't know that a year ago many people thought Pat Surtain could win it. Might be worth a sprinkle on Derek Stingley. Could Derek Stingley be the best football or be the best cornerback in all of football? He certainly can. Will he? I wouldn't bet on it, but it's certainly possible. Tace is definitely a chance. Tony says, Sting for president. I mean, the coverage would be good. Coverage, like defense coverage, you know what I mean? It's geopolitical joke that I don't think work. Who's there to give him a run for his money? I mean, it's Pat Surtain and it's Trent McDuffie. Those are really the only guys in that echelon. JB says Sting will be the best cornerback in football this upcoming season, no lower than 2nd, behind Patrick Surtain II. Yeah, look, there's no shame in him being the 2nd best cornerback in football again. There's no shame in that. It's still a really good season. Like, if Derek Stingley just did exactly what he did last year for the next 5 years, I'd be totally okay with it. And he'd probably be worth every penny. Look at that handsome guy. Where? Brandon says, wait, you mean Derek Stingley should cover Justin Jefferson and not Eric Murray? Yeah. I'd like to see him on a few more number 1 wide receivers. I really would. When you think about the Texans' schedule, there's some opportunities to show off against some big-time wide receivers. Right off the bat, first 3 weeks, you got Puka Nacua that Stingley could go up against. You got Mike Evans that he could go up against. And then you got Brian Thomas Jr. that he could go up against. Boom, boom, boom. First 3 right off the bat. If Stingley left those with those guys not catching any touchdowns and maybe 2 interceptions, you're off to a rocket of a start. Yeah, and as Damon says, just beat 24 Sting again, and I'm golden. Yeah, Tay notes you got to beat who's on the schedule. There's some really good wide receivers on the schedule, and then there's some weeks where there's not really good wide receivers on the schedule, like the Titans, the Ravens, and the Seahawks. I know Zay Jones is good, but he's not Mike Evans, Brian Thomas Jr., Puka Nacua. The Seahawks don't have, a great wide receiver. I'm forgetting his name. I want to call him Jonathan. I want to call him JTT. But that's not his name. It's not Juju Smith-Schuster. What is the damn Seahawks wide receiver's name? Jackson Smith and Jigba. There we go. Golly. I knew it was in there somewhere. I was like, his brother plays baseball. What's his brother's name? Yeah. Jackson Smith and Jigba's good. He's not great. So that's a player. 49ers, okay. Ayuk should be back by then. You're not going to put Stingley on Kittle. Cortland Sutton, a little rematch from a couple of years ago when Cortland Sutton got Derek Stingley good a couple of years ago. So Nick says not only will Stingley be the best cornerback, he'll break the NFL record for most interceptions in a season with 15. Nick, I will give you $39 if that happens. And only you. Because that's 15 interceptions plus 24, which is Sting's number. Sauce isn't good enough to lace Stingley's boots. I mean, I tend to agree with you. I like Derek Stingley a lot more than Sauce. Sauce is good, but he's not, I don't think he's the Surtain Stingley level. JB thinks McDuffie's a little overrated. Imagine being an opposing quarterback having to choose between throwing a Derek Stingley or Kamari Lassiter with Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter breathing down your neck. We don't have to imagine, Patrick. We'll see it in September, October, November, December, January, and God willing, February as well. Brandon says if Will Anderson Jr. goes off for 20 sacks, no cornerback's winning Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, you're right about that. Yep, there we go. There's Smith and Jigba, Jackson Smith and Jigba. There we go. Oh yeah, they got Cooper Kupp up there. But yeah, you're not having Derek Stingley follow Cooper Kupp. Not this version of Cooper Kupp. Not this version. So, all right, those are our 25 questions for the 25 season, 5 questions of the day. Joe Mixon, what has he got left? Hopefully enough for the Houston Texans. Can Cam Robinson solidify the left tackle spot? Is there still a reliable football player in Dalton Schultz? Is there a healthy group of linebackers that could be elite for the Houston Texans? And will Derek Stingley be the best at his position in 2025? Those are your 5 questions for the day. Christian says, Cody, what's up, baby? What's up, Christian, is you missed the show. If you're just now getting here, you got plenty to rewind and catch up on. Appreciate everybody for jumping in. Landry would tell you no matter if you think Patrick Surtain is the best cornerback in football or you think Derek Stingley is the best cornerback in football, we are all in this together. And I would tell you that I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. And we'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will have SNL for you Thursday and Friday. I got something coming for you on the Cody Stutes YouTube channel. Landry's got the locker room, so subscribe to it all. Appreciate everybody for watching the video. Have a fantastic midweek. It's hump day. You're almost to the weekend, and we'll see you on Friday Junior tomorrow here on the SNL channel. Appreciate everybody.